Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tiffany. In this video, I'm showing you how to make my haystack placemat. Now this placemat is made with a size 7 jumbo weight yarn. It is so incredibly thick. I'm absolutely in love with the texture. I just love how it turned out too. You can only really get this kind of appeal with a super thick jumbo size yarn. Now when it comes to the level of this crochet project, it's more so an advanced beginner crochet project. We're working our single crochet stitches in the front loops only or the back loops only, and that's it. So it works up really, really fast. The dimensions of this placemat ended up measuring out to 12 inches long. So this side right here is 12 inches. This side right here is 16 inches. All right, so the materials, what did I use to make this haystack placemat? Very minimal materials. I'm using the Loops and Threads Macrame yarn. This yarn surprisingly was on the shelf, then discounted, and then discontinued within a month period of time. And I'm so sad about that because this yarn is honestly amazing to work with. It's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, and works up super fast. Now, because this yarn has been discontinued, I will have substitution yarn that you can look at in the description section, comment section, and in the pattern itself. So that way, if you want to try to use a different yarn, you really like this pattern, which I love, I hope you give it a try. I'll have a type of material ready for you to go. All right, so the amount of yarn I used per placemat, I literally used one whole skein or cake, one whole cake, and I had this much left over. That's it. So in that case, if there are 82 yards of yarn, 75 meters, 300 grams, or 10.5 ounces of yarn in one skein, I would just kind of subtract whatever you think this is. Like that's it. That's how much was left after I finished the skein. All right, this pattern works up super fast. Let's go ahead and get started. So I start with a tail long enough for me to weave in my ends at the end of the project, make my slip knot, attach my crochet hook. I begin by chaining 20 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 18, 19, and 20. So for row 1, I'm going to actually single crochet in the back loops only. I'm going to find my V-stitches. There's V1, V2, so that's my second stitch for my crochet hook. I'm only going underneath this top loop and single crocheting. 1, 2, and that's all I'm doing for row 1 is making one single crochet in that back loop only all the way across. I will end with a total of 19 stitches. And 19. Awesome. This is what I'm looking at. For me, I love this macrame yarn and how it's working up. I hope that you have the ability to work with macrame yarn at some point because it's just fun. To move on to row 2, we're going to chain 1. We will turn our work. Row 2, we're going to single crochet in the front loop only of every single stitch all the way across. So when we look at our stitches here, if we rotate to the top where we can see that V, I'm going to take my crochet hook, I'm going to take the claw and go underneath just that front loop only from the outside coming inward, leaving behind this back loop. So I only picked up the one loop here. And then single crochet. There we go. Single crochet back loop only. Great. And that's all we do for row 2. Go ahead and continue on. I'll meet you at the end of row 2. Again, every single row for this project, you should have 19 stitches per row. So checking that periodically every now and then is a good idea. This is a very basic pattern, but sometimes it's easy to just accidentally add a stitch, subtract a stitch in even a basic pattern. So every now and then, make a count, see if you're on track. Okay, 18. And right here at 19, last stitch here. Great. Perfect. Moving on to row 3, chain 1, turn our work. Look, we've already established this really cool stitch right here, this really cool design that adds just so much more to the texture of the yarn and everything. It's really, really neat, really, really pretty. Okay, for this pattern, all we are repeating is row 1, row 2, row 1, row 2. Row 3, we're going to single crochet in the back loop only of every stitch space, then chain 1, turn. Row 4, we're going to single crochet in the front loop only of every single stitch space. That's the repeat pattern. Every even row, we will single crochet front loop. Every odd row, we will single crochet back loop. So you're just going to repeat that all the way through. We're going to end at row 24. That's where I had to stop because this last little bit of yarn was not enough for me to finish off row 25. And I was like, I'm not going to end the project partial row. So I backed it up to a finished row and then I cut my yarn, tied off, and wove in my ends. Okay, to weave in your ends. Now this is a little bit tricky. This yarn is not the regular type of yarn where there's plies in there that you can weave in between. Like I usually like to take my yarn needle and go between yarn strands, yarn plies, so that way the fibers cling to each other. With this macrame yarn, how it is designed, it's more like a webbing than it is those plies. So you can't really do that. So this is how I was able to weave in my ends. All right, so I'm going to take my yarn needle and I'm going to go into the next row down. Let's see how like there's this here, next row down. I'm going to go behind this loop here, pull through, and I'm going to go very slowly because this is such a bulky yarn. If I work too far ahead, it's more of a struggle to pull that yarn through. Okay, then I'm going to go underneath this one. Okay, then I'm going to go over this next one here. I'm going to go hop over that and go underneath the next one. Great. Make sure I'm not pulling too tight so that way it lays flat. Okay, go over this one right here. So over that one and under this one. And then what I like to do when I get about halfway through with my tail is I'll double backwards. So I'll come back and I'll go over this one I just came through. So over you. And I'll go underneath the one I went over. I'll like do the opposite or reverse of what I did. Okay, then over and this one right here that I went over, I'm going to go under for a weave. Okay. There we go. And then over, and I'm going to go under that last one. And it's important to go underneath that last one, so when we cut the yarn, it hides underneath that last loop there. So cutting the yarn flush with the work. Awesome. Now, if this is not holding, if it's still like slipping through, then a trick that I like to use is a little dot, just the smallest little dot of Aleene's Quick Dry Fabric Fusion fabric glue. And this stuff, it is non-toxic, it dries clear and flexibly, so you can throw this in the washing machine and it doesn't come apart, it stays true, it stays together, and it's the best thing in the world. And because it's the quick dry version, you just put a little dot there, you hold it for like 5-10 seconds and then let go and it's done. But that's it. That is how I make my haystack placemat. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I really want to thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, I have a whole playlist of home projects that you can crochet. I made a playlist just for you. Click on this. Let's keep crocheting together, keep spending time together. Thank you so much for crocheting with me, spending time with me. I'll see you with the next one. Bye, guys.